because I'm over here in Miami instead of back home in Portland. But it is a great time here in Miami. I am at the Hilton at the Rebel Capitalist Live event. Went down and got my VIP pass so I can go backstage. Fortunately, I will not be. Definitely, fortunately, because I was not prepared for it. I won't be on stage speaking as far as like an actual like hour long speaking, but I am invited to go on the discussion panel with Ken McElroy and Jason Hartman and George Gammon at the end of the day. So that's going to be an awesome good time to go and sit on that discussion panel for the Rebel Capitalist Live event. So really looking forward to doing that. It was a good trip down. Everything went really smooth from the Portland flight, transferred over in Denver, flew down to Miami, caught a cab up to the Hilton, and then I took my sister out to go have dinner at Casablanca, which is a really nice restaurant. Sits right on the water. It was a beautiful day. There was this nice wedding party going on, so we got to watch that while we were eating dinner. Had a really great conversation, and then we went and did the meet and greet at the Rebel Capitalist Live event, and I got to finally meet Brent Johnson. That was cool. Got to shake his hand and talk with Brent Johnson for a little bit. And then all the cool guys are there. You know, Jason Hartman and Ken McElroy was there. Mark Moss was there. Of course, George Gammon was there. Lynette Zhang was there. I ran up and gave her a big old hug, and that was nice. So, and I got a hug back. So that was pretty cool. It's a great time, and I am really looking forward to the speaking event tomorrow as far as all the great speakers. And yeah, I'll let you guys know what happens with that and how the discussion panel went. Thought I'd talk a little bit about this European corporate debt sell-off. Now, I said it a while ago. I said the things that were happening in China, you can expect them to start happening around the world. And, you know, I said it wasn't going to be exactly the same. Like in China, we saw like the property developers really getting hit hard, like especially like Evergrande. But I said that type of scenario is going to start finding its way throughout the rest of the world. And now go take a look at the article I leave down in the description for you guys. And you can find that the European debt market is now in a record pace sell-off. So pretty much the same thing is going to be happening in Europe. That happened in China. That's going to happen all across the world, and including here in the United States at some point. Couldn't tell you when that's going to happen, but I would imagine it's probably going to be happening fairly quickly. You know, really, this was something I was discussing with one of the guys down there at the event. Was what the Federal Reserve is planning on doing as far as taking care of the labor market, like the severe sheer shortage of labor out there, or however you want to describe it. And you know, I don't know what it is that the Federal Reserve plans on doing and getting more people into the United States to try and fill those jobs. I just don't think that's going to happen. What I think they're really going to try and do is take out the excess jobs that are available. And mainly they're going to start hacking the heads off the zombie companies. And that's really where the lifting of interest rates, I think, is going to start affecting like the corporations, and especially the zombie corporations. If you can take out the zombie corporations, everybody who loses their job at that corporation will then have to go find a job at one of the viable corporations that are out there. And that 2 jobs for every one person looking for one will turn into 1 job for every one job, or every person looking for one, and the unemployment will begin to rise. That's how I really see things happening, at least here in the United States, to deal with the labor shortage that is happening. They're going to take out the zombie corporations. There goes the labor. And you know, really, if you go and look at the other article I leave down in the description, you know, the Bullard, St. Louis Fed President Bullard, he's talking about taking the interest rates, the Fed funds level, to 3.5%. Now, 3.5% is about 1 percentage point above the neutral rate. And if you think about like how much there is already as far as a slowdown in the economy, if you lift the interest rates up to 3.5%, think about how slow the economy is going to be at that pace. I mean, it's going to be dramatically slow. So I don't really see like how things are going to be like happy good times going into the next 6-7 months when you have the Fed lifting interest rates up to 3.5%, and you're going to have like massive corporate defaults happening at the same time. It's going to get pretty ugly. All right, so what are you guys talking about? Anyone else think Econ looks a bit like the bad guy from Inglorious Bastards. I have never seen that movie, but I don't know. Is he a good looking dude? I don't know how to answer that. I'm sorry. Um, Meet Bingo in Oregon with drunk women. What a show. That is a good show, isn't it? I mean, that was one of the better shows that was on YouTube. And man, I had to end that. I'm going to get that thing back. I want to get that bingo show back. It was a good one. All right, 200 of you already up in the chat here. You know what I want you to do? Go over there and hit that like button. Get more people up into this chat. So if you go and hit the like button, what the YouTube algorithm will do is pick it up and start sending it all over the place for everybody else to go and watch, and we'll get more people up in here commenting, and that makes it a lot more fun. All right, should I sell my gold now to avoid a drop in price from Dollar Milkshake? No, I don't sell. I mean, if you want my advice, I don't ever sell. I don't sell because it's an insurance policy. Now, if you want to sell because you're worried about losing the profits or the gains that you may have made off of it, then I can understand why you would want to. But if you're holding it for the insurance policy like I am, then you don't sell. That's not the point of holding the precious metals. If you're doing it to try and earn some money, then yeah, you might want to, because I have a feeling that there is going to be a flight to cash as these corporations and other, it's not just corporations. It's like everybody who is strung out on debt. Almost everybody is strung out on debt owing dollars. So in order to get out from those debts, they're going to have to get those dollars, and that's going to add strength to the dollar. This is really like, I mean, obviously Brent Johnson goes much deeper into the dollar milkshake theory as far as like the demand for dollar across the world, and all the, sovereign debts that are written in dollars. That's a little bit different story. But when you think about, like, when it comes to safety, then gold is it. Like, there's really nothing else out there other than precious metals that will protect you from the third party risk. There's really nothing else. So if you're worried about that, then you got to hold gold and silver. But if you're worried about holding on to your profits because you want to make as much dollars as you can and then take advantage of a price drop in the future if it's coming, then yeah, now would be the time you would want to sell. But that's not investment advice, because I don't give investment advice, right? I just tell you guys what I'm up to. All right, onward. How awesome is it to have you 2 evenings in a row? Too cool. Yeah, right on. Yeah, well, I've been busy all day and I wanted to put a video out, and so I'm sitting in the hotel room by myself. So let's talk with you guys, right? How much longer for child support? I don't know what that is. Okay. Milkshake theory so far is playing out. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to Brent's his talk, because I really want to hear what he has to say. Both him, Jeff Snyder, both those guys, I really like. I really like their theories. I really like what they have to say. And it's not saying that the other guys don't have awesome stuff, because last at the Houston trip, when at the Rebel Capitalist Live 2 event, Mark Moss is like blew it out of the water. I mean, he knocked it out of the park with his presentation. It was really good. So I'm looking forward to Mark's presentation as well. I mean, I'm looking forward to all these speakers, every one of them. I mean, I'm not going to miss a second of it. All right. Best hookers are in Miami. Well, I wouldn't know that one either. So let's see. Hey, thank you very much for the $4.99. What was that, Alexis? Hotel snacks on me. Thank you. Snyder is incredibly sharp. He really is. I was very impressed with the videos that I had seen watching Jeff Snyder. I mean, very impressive stuff. And like a lot of you guys know, I really kind of turned off a lot of the YouTubers about probably a good 2 years ago. And I will occasionally watch a economics video on YouTube, but I really try to stay true to my own thoughts, my own theories, my own beliefs. And a lot of times, if you start following these other YouTubers out there, you end up mimicking a lot of what they say, or just kind of parroting them, because that's the information you're getting. So I not that I don't like listening to these guys. I mean, I really do. I mean, I really do. But I really, for my own, like, just to make sure that I was doing this on my own and that I wasn't mimicking somebody else, I had to like turn them off and just focus in on my own theories and ideas. You live in debt. What is deep? You live in deep. What is deep? I don't know. Did I write something wrong? Okay. How would CBDC help the Fed take interest rates negative? The central bank digital currency, that's another thing. Like I have mentioned it a couple of times here recently on this channel, and it's funny because a lot of people will think of the central bank digital currency like a credit card payment, and it's not the same thing. It's not the same. Like using Apple Pay, using your debit or credit card, or just like paying like online somehow, where you never actually touch cash, is not the same as making a digital or a central bank digital currency type purchase. When you make a purchase using like a debit card, what you're doing is you are swiping the machine. That machine talks to another computer at a bank, who talks to another computer at a bank, who talks to another computer at a bank, and then at the end of the day, it's all cleared out. That's not central bank digital currencies. That's not digital currencies in general. A central bank digital currency and like other cryptocurrencies and stuff out there, it's a peer-to-peer transaction. So it goes from this location directly to this location. It doesn't go traveling through a bunch of banks and intermediaries. It's a direct transfer of funds from one location directly to another. And there is a huge difference inside of that, but comparing it to say a credit card or debit card payment, because there's all these middlemen in between who take their cut. So it's not like one is better than the other type of theory. It's just to say these are definitely two separate things. They are not the same. Now, how will the central bank digital currency take interest rates negative? Once it is ultimately the goal of the central banks around the world to get cash out of the system. That's what they want. And the main reason is that if they can lock you into a central bank digital currency as opposed to cash, then you cannot get your money out of the system. I mean, it is in there and that is it. If you choose to hold on to your cryptocurrency, you're going to lose the purchasing power to a negative interest rate. So it's going to force you to either invest it into a place where you know you can get a return, or you're going to have to spend it on something just to keep your purchasing power, just to keep from losing it. So when the central banks go to start initiating the central bank digital currency, most people are not going to even know any difference between any of it. They're just going to be like, whatever, man. I mean, I can still go down to the store and buy all the things that I always did the same way I've always done it. But in the background, the way the device is going to work and operate as far as your payment method to do that transaction, it's going to be far different in the system. That central bank digital currency is going to, um, I don't know how to quite explain it, other than once you have your system set up to the point that you have the central bank digital currency, they're just going to make it a nuisance to hold cash. So it's going to like direct you towards that central bank digital currency. And like I said, most people aren't going to even notice the difference. They're really like, okay, cash is a pain. I have to pay a deposit or I have to pay a fee to deposit, and I have to pay a fee to withdraw it. I mean, why would I even do that when I can just use my card like always and then not worry about it? That's the mentality that most people are going to take to it, and most likely it's just going to just flow right into the system and nobody will ever question it. As time goes on, they're going to eventually one day find that they just don't have any cash in the system at all, and they'll be eventually just locked into the central bank digital currency. And then the Fed can take, or the central banks can just take the interest rates as negative as they want to go at that point, because there's no way for you to escape. Anyway, moving on. Thumbs up, people. Yes, we got 375 people in the chat and 137 thumbs up. I'd appreciate it if you guys go and hit that thumbs up and make the algorithm take this video and spread it around more. All right. Buy bonds for now, then get out fast. Cash and crypto will be king. Yeah, I would have a hard time holding debt. As far as like government debt, corporate debt, anybody else's debt, because dollars are going to get very difficult for people to get their hands on going into the future, and it's going to be even more difficult to try and pay their debts off. And if they can't pay their debts off, then you're going to miss out on your capital investment. So, To the bottom. Here we go. Owner operator here, and listening to your videos help me get down the road. Thanks, man. Yeah, well, you're welcome. Just curious, man. How is the trucking situation for you? It seems that I'm reading quite a bit of articles and actually experiencing a slowdown in the trucking industry. And what was it? It was an article I was reading about a guy who was trying to move a bunch of hot tubs, like he manufactures hot tubs or something. And anyway, he put out this order for truckers, like $2 a mile, and he thought that he was going to get like a counter offer of like 250 a mile or something. But like all these people like answered his request, were like, yeah, we'll totally accept that. And that is like a sign to me that, along with some anecdotal evidence that I have experienced as well, but it's a sign that the truckers are looking for work and they're not rejecting the loads as much as they once had. Because that's like another way, I guess, of like, I wish I knew a little bit more about trucking as far as how they determine like, what is a strong trucking market. But apparently they follow something called the rejections of orders. And so, like, these people will put out all these orders for truckers to fill. Like, it's just like a trucker say, yeah, I'll take that one. I'll deliver that one. Well, the rate of rejection, like, truckers saying, no, that one's not good enough. That one's not good enough. I would rather have that one right there because it's the most profitable. That rate of rejection is dropping dramatically. Like, these truckers are taking whatever they can get. And that's a sign that things are definitely slowing down. You have to remember, like, everything you have ever basically eaten, touched, wear, buy, sell, whatever, is at one time transferred on a truck. All right, Newt Scott, thank you for the $10. Been following you for a while. Keep on educating folks. Any thoughts on Chris Martinson's view on energy shortages leading up to a depression? I Man, I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it's the energy that's actually going to lead us into a depression. I mean, I could certainly see it going that way, especially if it gets really expensive. But what I end up finding is, or at least when I think about it, is that if, just like oil got real expensive, okay? Oil gets expensive, gas gets expensive. So gas gets expensive, and then what happens? People stop traveling. Well, if they stop traveling around, then that means they're not going out and spending money at restaurants or souvenirs or just, fun stuff or whatever, because they're not out, they're at home, and you don't spend money when you're at home. So the high oil prices actually slow the economy down to the point that there is going to be more of a recessionary from like a slowdown in sales. But is it going to go into a depression because of it? I don't know, because once it gets down to a certain level, well, then people will start jumping back in and using the low energy prices to gain a profit in whatever it is that they produce. So yeah, it could lead down into a depression, but I think it's going to be more of just pushing into a recession than it is actually depression. Um, I don't know. I guess time will tell on it, but I think that the Federal Reserve is really going to wait for the recession pain to kick in, and then they introduce the central bank digital currencies and start bailing everybody out again. It's just going to take a while for it to happen. Thank you very much, Jeremiah Hampton, for the $10. God, I just got something in my eyes. All right. So theoretically, does the central bank digital currency allow for a currency to always be limited, whether rates are hiked or in the negative? Will it what? Theoretically allow for currency to always be limited, whether rates are hiked or in the negative? Yeah, I guess it would. Um, but then I have to think about it. It was just like, what is it that they plan on doing with this central bank digital currency once they go negative? Because if you go into negative, that's like, nobody's going to invest their capital into getting a negative return. I mean, already the return on capital investment is so low that it's causing like, a slowdown in the economy. I can't imagine like capital investment going into negative interest rates. I mean, something like that would just be, I mean, just trying to even wrap my head around it, it doesn't seem like it's very feasible. What does seem feasible is a modern monetary theory at a negative interest rate, where the government will just spit out money to you, just fill your wallets up, and then if you don't spend it, then you end up losing it at the end of the month, and then they do it again. and somehow just keeping the economy like moving through this constant stimulation of MMT UBI kind of thought. But I don't know. I still question question the idea of whether an MMT kind of like economy can even function. Oops, there was another one up there. Where is it? Bang. Nate B, thank you very much for the $5. I want to expand on my house in Connecticut with a second floor. When will 2x48 be back under $3? I'm holding metal, Bitcoin, ETH, trying to stay alive. Okay. I got that question a lot today while I was down there at the meet and greet. And a lot of people want to know, when is the retail price of 2x4s going to come down? Okay, so at 600 per thousand, okay, you have to think like the futures price was down at like 550 last week. 600 per thousand, that's still a fairly good number. And 600 per thousand at the on like a 2x4. Okay, let's take a 2x4. And how many board feet are in a 2x4? 5.33. Well, let's just call it 5 board feet. And say you got 600 per thousand, okay? Well, at 600 per thousand at 5 board feet, that works out to about $3, okay? $3 for one 2x4. Now, that 2x4 has to travel from the mill all the way to the lumber yard and still profit at the lumber yard. So you know there's have to be some kind of increase on that. So it's probably at 600 per thousand, you're probably looking more at $4.50 to $5 for a 2x4. So it's not going to get to $3. It can't get there because the mill is charging $3. So unless you're going to go and buy a bunch of units of lumber from the mill itself, I don't think you're going to get the $3 2x4 out of it. Not at this point. Now, if we see things change and the futures drops to say 400 per thousand, 300 per thousand, definitely you would start seeing $3 studs. And then on churn, you also have to think there's a slowdown in building happening, right? The home builder sentiment is in the toilet because they have a hard time finishing these homes. Now, if you were a builder who is building and you have a difficult time completing the home, well, that's your profit. I mean, you have to complete these things in order to get paid. And if the slowdown in completions is still happening, then builders are probably don't have a whole lot of incentive to start new homes. Like you would want to finish these old ones first, right? Get paid before you start new ones. So when you start seeing the pace of completions pick up, then I would start thinking like the builders will get back into the game again. That kind of scenario. You see what I'm getting at? Anyway, I kind of lost track. Moving on. Okay, who would like an XL pipeline? Canadians poaching trees because lumber is so high. Yeah, and that's another thing. Okay, so that was the other thing I was going to say. If you have a slowdown in builders or just a slowdown in like even the retail market, everybody last year went out and did all the remodeling and building of decks and fences and all that stuff. So the turnover at the lumber yards, especially like the smaller ones, like the ones that I work at, it's slow, right? It takes a while to get through all that expensive lumber. Now, you could either do one of two things. You can either sit on it and hope that you can sell it and still get some sort of profit off of it, or you can start bleeding money by, dropping the prices down and then try and bring in new inventory and make up for all the lost lumber or all the lost profits that you had by selling lumber under what you paid for it. Neither one of them works out very well. So most lumber yards end up sitting on their lumber trying to turn over that old lumber into new lumber that is cheaper, and that takes some time. Now, if you have a distributor that is like they turn over a lot of material, like they can clear out their entire yard inside of 2 weeks, well, then you're going to find that yard has dropped their lumber prices much quicker than, say, like, a smaller lumber yard like the one I work at. It's going to take some time for us, All right, $5 from Newt Scott. Meant recession. Keep up the good work. Your bullwhip effect prediction last year is in full effect. Inventory's rising. Yeah, I could see it. Like, a lot of people would disagree with me when I said that the things that were happening within the lumber industry were going to start occurring throughout the rest of the the rest of the economy. And people were like, nope, not the same thing, bro, not even going to happen. And I'm like, well, you're right, it's not going to be exactly the same thing, but it is going to happen. You're going to find those inventory levels begin to rise. And here it is, it's starting to happen. And it's not a surprise to me. I mean, not at all. In fact, the other prediction I made because of this is all the warehouses that have been built to hold all this stuff, those are going to start going into foreclosures and bankruptcies and all that other stuff that goes along with it, because they don't need these warehouses to store all the stuff, because this stuff was not really meant to be ordered. It was a panic buy. It was overindulgence. It was, you know, it was a miscommunication is really what it was. It was a perception thing that people had that they needed to get all this stuff in here because there was this overwhelming consumer demand that just simply just didn't exist. I said it back then, and here we are experiencing it. So yeah, I mean, I did call that one. I mean, I didn't know exactly what it would look like, but here's the evidence of it. Just look at what's going on with Walmart and Target and how they are just like way oversupplied on all their goods. And like, not in the food section though, right? The food section's still in short supply, and that's probably going to get worse. Let's see here. Fear purchasing. Yep, that's what happened. I mean, people get scared, they start buying up, and even worse, like, it's not just the people themselves, like, it's the retailers who do it to themselves. Like, if you don't have it on the shelf and you had 5 people come in asking for it, you're gonna wish you had 10, right? And if you order up 10 and they say, well, you're gonna get 3, you're like, no, that ain't gonna work. I need 30, right? So they put an order in for 30 thinking that they're gonna get 10 of these things because they're getting allocations. And then the distributors, the wholesalers, they're looking at an order for 30. They don't know that, the people are only panic buying because they're getting allocated. They don't see that. They don't know that's what's going on. So they just put the order in for 30 like they normally do. And then all the way up to the manufacturer who goes like, oh my God, all these people want this stuff. And they didn't really want it. They just wanted the handful that they originally asked for but couldn't get. Not in oversupplying things you need, only in doodads. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's in luxury items. And that's it was funny because on the plane ride here, I read some more of Cantillon's essay. I went back and I read the last few chapters of that essay where he's talking about the trade imbalances and stuff. And he talks about it several times more. It's when you start bringing in a lot of luxury items into the country is when you start seeing the fall of the state. And man, that isn't like what's happened right now. All that stuff that came from Walmart and Target, that's all luxury stuff. It's nothing you need. There's not one thing in there that you need, right? The only thing you need is clothing and food and water, right? I mean, after that, everything is a luxury, and that's all that stuff. That's all luxury stuff, every bit of it. All right. Rolex market coming down. Really? That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that one. All right. What was that? Clout shot. What is that? Clout shot economic collapse. Food shortages, gas prices, and inflation through the roof. Why continue to participate? I don't know why you. I mean, I guess because you can't quit, right? You can hire a few people for $500 million in pot tax if your state wants to make it legal. You can hire a few people for $500 million in pot tax. Huh. Okay. I thought all that warehouse space was to defend against the hiccups shown in the just-in-time delivery style. Okay, no, that's it. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that one right there, because that's a very legitimate way of looking at it. It was just like, no, we're not going to play this game where we order just in time and then have this big huge disruption when all of a sudden you sever the supply chain. No, that ain't going to work. So what we're going to do is we're going to start stocking up these warehouses, and that way there's no just in time delivery. You pull from warehouses and to make sure that you have plenty of stock on hand. All right, well, you do realize that just-in-time delivery is by far the cheapest, most efficient, profitable way of doing retail market or getting, products through the system. Warehousing it means that you're going to start adding more cost to the items because you have to pay for the storage of it. Right? Not to mention, you also pay an interest on the stored stuff, Like stores who revolve their inventory, they pay an interest on all the stuff that sits on their shelves, right? They don't own that outright. It's revolved on credit. So not only do you pay the added increase on the item because of the warehousing of it, but then you got the inflation on top of it. So now you got foreigners who are like, okay, well, the supply chain is now starting to ease up and we can start getting the flow of materials back through the system again. Now, let's just assume like, it's a few months, we're years down the road or whatever. You got all these people who have these warehouses and you got these young entrepreneurs or they don't have to be young, they just be entrepreneurs up in the game who are now reestablishing a just-in-time delivery because it is so much more efficient and profitable. Everybody who's doing it out of the warehouses is going to end up failing. So yeah, it's going to work for the idea of like protecting ourselves from like supply chain issues by stocking and warehousing, but it's going to be so much more expensive than just having a just-in-time delivery that by the time you get this all established, just-in-time delivery is going to knock the profit out of anything that those guys had to do. Thank you very much for, let's see here, composite operator, pen 15. What's pen? I don't know what the pen is. All right. Major layoffs coming in the U.S. tech sector soon. Housing prices could come down a lot by the end of 2020 and the start of 2023. They could. House prices could come down. I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't. I do have to wonder what exactly would it be that would cause the housing prices to come down. Like, generally, it's going to be an inventory, right? More inventory. If you have, it's like a supply and demand, right? Huge demand, less inventory, prices go up. If you got huge inventory, less demand, prices are going to go down. And so what is going to bring the inventory up on homes? That's the major question. Is it going to be like the Harry Dent style where we're going to have to wait for like all the baby boomers to pass away and then like, not be able to occupy this house because they're dead? Or is the builders going to come in and start building a lot more homes? I mean, that's really the only two ways you can get more inventory to the market. Which one of those is it going to be? Foreclosures? Yeah, that could happen. Like, I could see like foreclosures adding a lot of inventory to the market, but then what would cause foreclosures? Like the great financial crisis had tons of people underwater on their mortgages. Okay? So if you have purchased a house in the last 6 months, most likely you're not underwater. Like, I'm not underwater on mine. I bought a house for a lot of money, like way more than I should have. I put a lot of money down on it, and then the thing went up dramatically, like almost 20% it's gone up. And so I have to think, well, now I could take a 20% hit and still like not be underwater. In fact, I could take even more than that and still not be underwater. And I haven't even owned this home for a year. So how many people are sitting in that situation, right? I mean, granted, I had to put a lot of money down on my house because I had a foreclosure in the past and they didn't want to give me a regular loan. I had to go and get, I had to meet a higher criteria to get it. So most people don't put that much money down on a house. But again, I still have to think like that situation is rolling through. All these people who were in for forbearance, they had the same thing. Like when they had to go and like either refinance or restructure their loan or something like that, that's what they did. And now they got a cheap interest rate. So what is the likelihood of those guys just like willingly giving up their loan on a cheap interest rate right now just so they can go and find or not find an apartment to live in or a more expensive house with a higher interest rate? So people who are probably going to try as hard as they can to stay in the house that they have if the interest rates on a new mortgage is going to be that much more expensive. And then again, so that's like the forbearance ending isn't going to add like a lot of inventory to the housing market, mainly because even if you can't stay in your house, like you're forced to get out, you're probably going to be able to sell it and even sell it for a profit. So like, where's this wave of inventory going to come from? Like, I don't see it coming from those directions. Higher interest rates could like deter people from wanting to take out mortgages. But then again, like I have to think there's so many people out there. If the bank is willing to give them the loan, they'll do it. Like they might be able to write out a bunch of really bad like toxic loans over the next few months or something like that, and those ones could go upside down. I don't know. I mean, they could set it up to do it. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Why is the video blurry, aka not HD? How many people are? How many? Is the video blurry? I mean, my screen looks good, but I don't know. All right, let's see here. That's where it's gonna come from. Construction. Yeah. Completions. Yeah, there you go. From completions. It's not blurry. Okay, thank you. Not blurry. No, it's clear. Okay, sorry, bro. It must be your camera or your screen. All right. What's the next question, guys? All right. The central bank. Oops. The central bank will get usurped by decentralized. Yeah. Um. Decentralized credit cards. Yeah. I could see that, but one of the things that will keep that would prevent a currency from coming into the system is you're forced to pay taxes in a particular currency. Like you can go ahead and use whatever you want, but you're gonna have to pay your taxes in this, or else you're gonna lose everything you own. So imagine it like that. Like, could the central banks like just force the one currency that they want by getting the governments to just accept that as their taxes and only that? Where are you? Not blurry. Where am I right now? I am in Miami at the Hilton Hotel, attending the Rebel Capitalist live event. Alex Jones, 2024. Yeah, Alex Jones. He's a wild one, all right. All right, real estate definitely lags. I forgot why though. Lags in which way? Like, as far as like slowdown or stuff like that behind the rest of the economy? It's probably because it's such a major purchase, and the decision to make a purchase of something like that happens over the course of like months and even years. So like it's not like a quick rational like irrational decision that you make on. I mean, I guess it is for some, but anyway, most people like spend a lot of time thinking about this, and when they go forward with it, then it's like almost like a momentum that they're not going to stop. So like when a lot of people are like discretionary spending and they slow down on like say buying a car or going on vacation or doing it, things like that, they may be pulling back on those things, but going ahead and going through with purchasing of the house because it was such a major decision from such a long time ago that now it's finally coming to fruition, and they're not going to back out now. So that might be a reason why you see it lagging. I'm just thinking out loud there. All right, to the bottom. All right, let's see here. What do you think about Bank of America having, oops, where'd you go? Bank of America having to close out or deliver 316 million ounces of silver derivative contracts, biggest in history, closing branches in Portland, Oregon? Well, to be honest with you, I'm going to have to read up on that one. I don't know anything about that story. So if you have a link to that, please email it to me. I would love to read that story up. I didn't catch that one. All right. Question: is there a path for the U.S. dollar to be the world reserve? Is there a path for the U.S. dollar to be the world reserve currency forever? Forever meaning a couple of centuries. I doubt it. I doubt the U.S. dollar will remain a world reserve currency forever, in even like 100 years or something like that. Um, Mainly because like all fiat currencies come to an end. So if the dollar does eventually switch over to a central bank digital currency, well then the US dollar, like the Federal Reserve note, would cease to exist. Like that's like two separate types of currency. So the central bank digital currency could take over as a world reserve currency, and the dollar wouldn't be part of it anymore. So as far as like the dollar being the world reserve currency forever, no, I doubt that. I very seriously doubt that. And even like the United States central bank digital currency, like a Fed coin, I mean, although the Federal Reserve may really want that to be the world reserve currency, I doubt that it would be either. It's most likely going to be a basket of currencies that's controlled by like the IMF or something like that, like a world currency, a world cryptocurrency that is backed by many central bank digital currencies and maybe even like cryptocurrencies. Who knows? But that's more of what I see being like a world reserve currency, and not so much the currency of one particular country. Um, Really, the only reason why the United States has the world reserve currency is because they're the only country that is willing to do it. Most countries aren't. Now, a lot of people might argue with that, saying, no, there's other countries out there like the BRICS nations who are setting it up and doing all that other stuff. Yeah, that's true. They are. But in order to have like a world reserve currency in the fashion that is existing today, is you have to have two things. One, you have to have a bond market that's big enough to provide the world with a safe and liquid asset like the US Treasuries. No other nation is willing to go into that deep a debt to provide the world with that much. And the other thing is that you have to be able to fund the world with dollars, right? You have to be able to provide all these dollars to the world. Now, how do you do that unless you're willing to take on an insane amount of deficit spending, meaning that you import a hell of a lot more than you export, and when you import this stuff, you export your dollars. So that's two things that this nation does that other nations I don't think would be willing to do. And so until that time comes, then the dollar is it. Like they, people can put all the theories and all the ideas, the BRIC nations, gold, silver, cryptos, with all that other stuff, that's fine. I mean, you can put those arguments out there, but there's no other currency that does what the US dollar does. I mean, it stands alone. I mean, there's other ones that kind of compete, but not nearly, not even close. So, yeah, the dollar will remain the reserve currency until it doesn't, and then it will be replaced by something else. But at that point, it's like I said, it's probably going to end up being a basket of world currencies instead of a single nation. All right, hey, thank you for the super chat, Terry Tron. Man, my eyes are getting blurry. That's another thing. I have to have my eyes checked. I think I've been reading so much on my phone now that I've damaged my eyes, so it's really hard to see. What happened if Russian win the war? What will happen to European economy? Will inflation go up around the world? That's gonna be. I'd be curious to see what would happen if Russia wins, but I really don't know. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, Russia really just wants all the commodities of Ukraine to be sold in rubles, or the central bank digital currency of Russia, whatever that will be. I think that's really what, in the end, that's what Russia wants, is to, I mean, why else would they want to do it? I mean, that's the only thing that, nations do. They take, they fight them, beat them up, and then take their natural resources from them. That's the whole point. So Ukraine, I mean, I don't think Russia would even care if Ukraine had its own government, so long as they sold everything that they produced, or, exported, and as long as they do it in rubles, then Russia would be cool with it. And that would add even more strength to the ruble. People ask me all the time, how come the ruble's so strong? Well, if you force other nations to buy your commodity in your ruble, I mean, it's not like they want to do it. You're forcing them to do it. So it's not a strong currency. I mean, do you trust Russians? I mean, you might trust Russians. Like, I shouldn't say anything about the people, but you don't trust Russia, the government. It's like trusting China. All right, buy a boat. Russia needs to get pushed back and all land returned to Ukraine, including Crimea. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not up to me to decide. I mean, I don't get political, and I hate war. So, I mean, I don't know what to say about any of that stuff. Oh, wait on the boat. Yeah, I'm not getting a boat. Somebody told me something about if it floats, flies, or does something else, then you should rent it. No, I don't want to tell the joke. All right. Popular sentiment. I trust my own government. Um, you never, I think the founding fathers of this country would cringe at hearing that. Like, they do not want you to trust anybody, especially anybody of authority. That's the whole point of setting up the Constitution and rights and everything else that went with it. I mean, they tried to establish this country in a way that you are the highest authority. You are it. That's it. And a lot of people don't think that. Like, they have this like government control over them, and they just allow it or something like that. I don't get it. But I love fishing. I love fishing too. I love fishing too. Uh, yeah, there you go. Bow tied big cat. You got it. I trust that you can't trust central power. Yeah, I agree. I have very low tolerance for authority. Like I am very cool with all the police officers and everybody that I ever encounter and stuff like that. I won't even so much as cross the street unless the sign says gives me permission, because I don't want to have to defend my rights. I don't want to have to identify myself. I don't want to have to explain to an officer why it is that I'm not going to give you my ID unless I'm being arrested. Like, I don't want to have to explain that to somebody and have them get angry with me. So instead, I'm just going to save all that by just not breaking any laws, right? And being well aware of them. Like, even like I see people in my hometown, right? And now I'm a pro Second Amendment. Like, I have no problems with firearms, and I think some of the laws, especially here in Oregon, are kind of ridiculous with them, right? So I have no problem with firearms, but I don't open carry, and I don't really approve of open carrying. Right? It's not like I care that you open carry. You can open carry as much as you want. But when I'm in the grocery store in the middle of the town, I don't want to see people carrying guns around. Okay, it's just my personal choice. I don't want to see it. Like, there's places for guns, and the grocery store isn't really one of them. And to carry one around in there doesn't really like seem suitable to me. Now, granted, there are plenty of people who feel that they need to protect themselves. That's great. Like, if you feel the need that you should protect yourself, then go and ask for the permission slip, right? Give up your rights and ask for a permission slip and carry that gun, right? Now, if you want to exercise your rights, then you better know the law. And that in the city limits of Astoria, City Ordinance 5.010 says that you can't carry a loaded firearm open carry, right? It has to be unloaded. So it's legal to carry the gun. They can't make a law that goes against the Constitution. That would be illegal. It would make it in void, right? But what they can do is say that you can carry your firearm all you want. It just can't be loaded. So what's the point, right? There's no point in carrying the firearm at that point. So I see these people in my hometown open carrying firearms, and I'm thinking every single one of you is breaking the law. Like, how. I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't do it. It's not up to me on whether or not you want to, exercise your rights in that fashion. All I guess I'm getting at is that as a law abiding citizen who understands his rights and knows what the laws are, that's, I mean, I would like to other people to practice that as well, right? I mean, if you feel that you should have the right to legally open carry a firearm wherever you go, then go do it, man, and see what happens with you and fight for your rights. I mean, that's up to you to do it. I'm not fighting that battle. I'm not going to do it. A gun would have come in handy in that grocery store in Buffalo. Okay. Again, like, I know, how many people I know who have concealed weapons permits? Like, I know so many people. Like, in my hometown, like, if somebody was to start shooting, there is definitely a gun coming out that is concealed, right? I mean, there are so many people who have it. So I'm not concerned. Like, I mean, I know plenty of people who carry. Like, the chances of somebody being in the grocery store at the time of a shooting with a concealed weapons permit, okay, granted, it's probably pretty low that it's going to be there. But then the chances of getting shot in a grocery store are even less. So, I mean, that's all I'm getting at is there's plenty of guns around, right? If you feel the need to carry one, then go do it, man. That's up to you, but just do it legally is all I ask. And that way I don't have to defend myself, right? I mean, or defend myself even more than I have to already. I'm not trying to make up excuses or anything like that. It's just that I understand the laws and I understand the rights, and when I see people going against it, it's just going to make it much more difficult for people to legally do it, and that's all I'm asking is, like, don't make it any harder on us. It's already hard. How big is your gun? 8 inches? I don't know. Gianna, why don't you answer that? All right. Is the government still going? No. No. On the QE, they are not going QE. They're going quantitative tightening. They're going to be moving the other way with it. People are like, I mentioned that a few times. It was just like, no, the quantitative easing, like, they're not money printer no longer go burr, but people, like, the inflation can still go on. Like, just because the Fed stopped printing money doesn't mean that inflation can't continue. I mean, that can still continue. But as far as like the quantitative easing programs and all that other stuff, no, that's coming to an end. Carry a grenade. Threaten to pull the pin. There you go. Capitalism has returned. Yeah, I have my concealed carry. I don't want to flaunt my packaging. It's not for show. I pray I never have to use it. Well, you are very like you're very logical thinking. Right? That's the whole point of it. You know, it's funny. I shouldn't say this is funny, but there was a story of my brother who he has it concealed, right? And it was a while ago, and I don't know what it was that he was doing, but he was like walking down the street, and I don't know if he was like had been drinking or something, but anyway, these guys are working on their car, right? They're just on the side of the street working their car, and my brother, who I don't know why he said, but he just said something stupid to him, like, "Oh man, what a piece of shit car," right? Well, these guys start chasing him, right? They're chasing him with the damn tire, like they're gonna track him to, get him down, beat his ass with this tire iron, and he's packing and he's running away and he's freaking out. He's like, "Oh shit, now what do I do?" Right? Because if these guys get me, I'm gonna have to shoot them. And so, they just kind of chased him for a little bit and just kind of ran him off. But he was like, I mean, think about that. Think about that situation that he was put into, man. Do you want to be put there? Like these guys, you say something stupid, now they're going to chase you down and you're going to kill them and you're going to have to spend the rest of your life in jail. I mean, I wouldn't look forward to that, right? That's not the situation you want to be in. Aaron Levi, $2. If QE has stopped, why is the balance sheet rising? Okay. I don't know why the balance sheet, I mean, I didn't look at the balance sheet as far as it's rising, but you do realize that if the treasuries sit on the balance sheet and those things come due and they roll those treasuries into new treasuries, that is not only their capital coming back, but the profit, and that can roll into new treasuries. So just because they're not like firing up the printing press and buying new treasuries with it, the old treasuries that they have can profit them into more. The error was his mouth not caring. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree that it was him. It wasn't smart, right? It wasn't smart for him to say something like that. Now he shouldn't have done it, but he did, right? And now he's being chased with a guy with a tire iron who's going to beat him up. Now what do? Right? I mean, if they beat him up, they could have taken his gun from him, and then he would have been in that much more trouble, right? They could have shot him. So it's not like, I mean, that situation, yeah, he shouldn't have opened his mouth, but the chances of people like actually flipping out on him because he made a simple joking statement to somebody, that shouldn't have occurred, right? I mean, these people were violent towards him for a handful of words. I mean, that's like, this is the type of nation that we live in, where you have to be like so concerned that if you say hi to somebody, they might actually chase you down. What if they didn't take it as a hi? What if they're like, "What do you mean by hi? What do you think I'm high?" I mean, what if it went down like that? Shoot in the air like the movies. Yeah, I guess there is that. I mean, you fire a couple of rounds over somebody's head and they'll probably stop. I know I would. All right. What do you think of Tesla? Do you see it developing into something more than an EV car company, or uninterested in them? Are there any companies that interest you? Are you thinking like as far as like buying their stock, investing purposes? Um, I I mean, I can see Tesla making other products. Like I mean, they already kind of do. So I can see where Tesla could go into like manufacturing all kinds of different things. But as far as companies that I'm interested in, I'm not interested in Tesla, no. The only company that I really invest in, I do invest in some gold miners, like some mining shares, not a whole lot, but I do invest some in mining shares. And then I also invest in Marlboro cigarettes, Anheuser-Busch. It's the ticker symbol MO, Altria. Not because I smoke or drink, but because I know a little bit about addiction. And so anyway, I've been buying into Altria. Um, just recently, I guess that Jewel product of theirs is getting hit hard with some issues, but at the end of the day, there's still going to be plenty of people using nicotine and drinking beer. So I just don't see that company going anywhere. There might be some better buying opportunities going into the future as we start seeing a lot of this price drops coming. Um, you know, if you start going into more recessionary, depressionary kind of things, well, then people will end up drinking a lot during those times. Um, so I just don't see Altria being like a bad investment, but that's my opinion. And it has a decent dividend yield too, so that's the other reason why I got it. Who was the last independent president? George Washington? I don't think have we ever had an independent president? Well, independent of what? That would be the other thing. And independent from what, the banking system? Wouldn't Andrew Jackson be that guy? I mean, he pretty much left this country flat ass broke, but no debt. I mean, we were at zero, right? I mean, it was like the one and only time this country didn't have debt was through Andrew Jackson. So I'm not like praising him for anything, like as far as his presidency goes. I'm just saying, like, I think that was like the only time this country was ever at zero. And his dying words was like, "I killed the bank." That was like the last thing he said before he died. Hey, there's a super chat up there. Thank you very much for the $10 there. Digital Cash Cow. Appreciate the $10. Buying a boat when things get cheap later and toys go on the sale. And when toys go on sale, is it a debt trap to later be death by default? Any thoughts, UE? Ooh-wee? Thanks in advance. Tesla, e-boat, green ESG boats. Um, okay, buying a boat when things are cheap. Is it a debt trap to later be death by default? Yeah, when you buy all these toys on credit and then you can't make the payment on it, then yeah, it's like basically bleeds all your money out of you, and then the fact that you had bought toys is the reason why you are now like broke. So yeah, I can see that being a major problem. Um, like from this point going into for the next, probably the next year or two, things of necessity are going to be your priority. Luxury items, like I joke around with the guys at work with as long as we have this high gas prices, eventually somebody's going to start selling their big giant pickup truck that they don't want anymore because it's a gas hog. And I tell my buddies, I was like, that's when I'm going to buy one, and then I'll park it behind the house until the gas prices come down, and then I'll start driving it around. But that's just a joke, right? But that could actually come into reality as people, like, if the gas prices do shoot up to like $6, $7, $8 a gallon or something like that, and you have a truck that gets like 8 miles to the gallon, then you're probably not going to want to drive it around too much, because that's really kind of the case right now, and even on efficient vehicles. So. Oops, there was another super chat up there. $5 from God. Well, thank you very much, God. I smoked a super fatty of a bowl. I'm flying through the sky, blocking out these stock demons telling me to sell my stonks. Yeah, I gave up weed. Up in Oregon, the Pacific Northwest is like everybody smokes weed. There is so much marijuana up in that particular corner of the country. It's just unreal. And it's not even like a big deal anymore. Like nobody even cares, and it's just kind of this something that like it's just accepted throughout the community and society or whatever up there. Nobody really cares about weed, and I had to give it up. Like to me, I felt like I just don't feel like it was helping me to expand or relax or do any of the things that I enjoyed about it when I was younger. It just kind of just became this habit thing that I would do and didn't really. And so I just gave it up. I'm like, you know what, I'm done with this stuff. And maybe someday out in the future again, I might try it again. But, I did so much of it as a kid. I just don't know what it is that I'm expecting it to do for me anymore. It's just not there for me. All right. Weed is the opiate of the people. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking weed. I mean, if you smoke weed, that's cool. I mean, I don't have a single bit of issues with it. I kind of have a problem with alcohol. That's my major problem is that I really like to drink and I drink way too much and I really screwed my life up doing that. And I see a lot of other people doing it. Hardly anybody. I don't think I have known any single person who has like lost their job and their family and everything that they had because of their weed addiction. Now, it did happen to the fact that like back when it was illegal and they got caught with it and that screwed their life up. But the actual use of marijuana, I've never seen anybody actually drive their life into the gutter with weed alone. Like that doesn't happen. You know, I mean, I guess it could, but I've never seen it. You know, and I know a lot of people who smoke weed. All right. God, my eyes are getting bad. Froxen Hunter, $10. With rising temperature and Russia becoming ice-free in the near future, do you think they'll replace the U.S. as the world superpower as they export more energy to China and ramp up their economy? No, I don't see him becoming the world superpower. I don't. Not Russia. No, I can see him being a world pain in the ass. I mean, that's like definitely, you know, a possibility. But as far as a superpower goes, like the superpower to take, no, I don't see that. Alcoholics lose everything. Potheads have nothing to lose. It's true. I guess that's true. They sold their last CD so they could get a dime bag, you know. All right. It affects everyone differently. That's true. I mean, that is absolutely true, and that's for everything out there. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. Um, where we go? There we go. The Earth is flat, and it is motionless. Well, I guess if you think so. Um, Great discussion, Simon. Can't wait to see you on the panel tomorrow. Yeah, I am so looking forward to being going. I mean, of course, I'm drinking a Coca Cola right now, but it's just like at home. It's like 8 o'clock or something like that. So I'm like wide awake right now up here, you know, in my hotel room. But there's still 570 of you guys, so let's keep going, right? The Federal Reserve Bank is the third one. We will have nothing but problems until it's gone. Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, this is the Federal Reserve isn't the first central bank of this country. I mean, we've had national banks in the past, and that's what Andrew Jackson was trying to take out. He's like, don't do this stuff, man. This is bad for us. Alcohol is too reliably addicting for governments to give up licensing revenues for selling it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can see that, you know, but yeah, that damn alcohol, that stuff just really, God, it took like 10 years out of my life, you know, just being a drunk and then trying to recover from it. It's just, what a pain. You said a government default would be a contagion. What a up with Sri Lanka then? Okay, well, Sri Lanka is not going to cause a contagion. I mean, they're just a little tiny little nation, right? But if you get Sri Lanka and China and Turkey and Pakistan and all these other nations, and pretty soon all the debts that those guys have issued out start to default on people and their balance sheet and corporations, then you start having problems. I mean, one nation goes out, no big deal, right? And even the ones that I mentioned, you know, all those could go out, and it still probably wouldn't do it. But if you get enough of them and you get enough corporations, well, then it starts kicking in and you can't stop it. So just because Sri Lanka goes, or even like, you know, even if Russia went, like, I don't know if Russia itself by itself would cause a contagion. But you start getting enough of them, you get enough corporations doing it, then yeah, you can really see it kicking into gear. And then now what do you do to stop it? You just might not be able to. All right. Do you think when student loans go back in repayment, it will have an effect on spending, real estate market, etc.? Um, yeah, but so many students now believe that. I mean, it just seems like this common thought that you don't have to pay your student loans back. Like it seems like so many people I talk to just kind of say that. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily the case or if people are going to be taking on that kind of attitude towards it, but it seems to me like they are very like of the mind that they should have these things like just completely wiped off their debts and like they shouldn't have to pay them back or something. And if you have enough people like just refusing to make their payments, what are you going to do? Like, you can garnish them, you can do all kinds of stuff, but you can't make them go out and get a good job and pay those things back willingly. So, is it going to cause a slowdown in like housing and stuff like that? Well, yeah, if you can't get the credit because you got bad, student loans on your, on your portfolio or whatever it is you got on your credit score, and you have interest rates incredibly high and you got house prices up, then yeah, I mean, student loans is going to be very burdensome. I mean, I've said that from the very beginning. Like, student loans drags down the economy. It doesn't really help the economy, right? Like, the idea behind it was is that you give all these people degrees, and then we'll have this super smart nation who will just like produce all these wonderful things for us. Well, it didn't even come close to happening. What ended up happening is a lot of people are now suffering with high debt loads, and that's really what occurred from it. I mean, a few people probably did well with their degrees or whatever and paid off their student loans and, did it right. But I, I'm thinking most people are like just screwed with it. All right. Hey, God, thanks for the $5 again. If you had a free $50,000 to invest right now, where would you put the money? Especially with how the market is currently. I wouldn't. I would hold 50K right now. But if I couldn't hold the 50K, I'd probably split it into, a couple of sections. Like I would not have any problems, like especially if I was trying to hold on to that money, I would have no problems going into like gold or silver with like a third of it, maybe a little less. I don't know if a third of it would be exactly right, but I would dollar cost average into this stuff, even dollar cost average into the stock market, even when it's down like this. I guess it would depend on what your timeline is. I mean, do you want that money back next year, or do you want it back in like 10 years or 50 years, or how? I mean, what's your timeline on it? So that's really like another question that you would have to add into it. But I would probably do like a third, like cash, and then a third I would dollar cost or two-thirds of it I would dollar cost average into gold and maybe into the stock market or something like that. Um, but ultimately, if somebody handed me like $50,000 cash right now, I would have $50,000 cash in probably the next 2 months. I wouldn't do anything with it. Oop, there's another super chat. Thank you so much, Jaws. Yes, it's great to see you here. 9.99. Thank you very much for the super chat. 150 pages into the Creature from Jekyll Island. Very interesting hearing about barter as sound money exchange, and also how free economy will level out. Gold miners to nice suit maker ratio. Oh, gold miners to nice suit maker ratio. I get it. Very cool. Yeah, that Creature from Jekyll Island, that is one of the only, in fact, it is the only book I have ever read on economics. That and the essay on Cantillion's essay on economic theory. Those are the only two that I have really ever put any serious reading into. And I was reading more of that essay, Cantillon's essay today on the plane, and it's pretty good. The last few chapters talking about trade, man, that is just so telling. It is so telling of like the conditions that we're in right now. Um, there's a lot of parts to it that he goes into and explains, but if you just read those last two chapters, man, does it make a lot of sense. And basically in the end, I mean, Cantillon he says it in the end, like, as a nation's state, as they start to expand and get money into the state, this new money comes in, they start going into luxuries and they start buying those luxuries from foreigners. And once that starts to happen, it's like pretty much the end of that state. It's like that's the telling sign that they're coming to their end. And man, if we ain't that way. All right. I like my $100 bill collection. It's a castle wall with 1 ounce gold coin pillars. I like your attitude, Mike. All right. What was that other one right below it? Did I miss it? Is it? Give me both alcohol and drugs. Don't work for me. Got into much trouble and many setbacks. Got tired of not keeping up what I worked for hard for. That's it too. And that's what I like. I look back on it and it was just like at the time it seemed so easy just to sit there at the bar and hang out with your friends and drink beer all night and not think about like how much money you were wasting there. It was like, no, I'm not wasting it. I'm enjoying myself, right? This is what you do with your money. You enjoy yourself. And I look back on all those days that I was enjoying myself and I got nothing out of it. Like I other than the moment of being buzzed and laughing and joking with my friends, there is no reward from that later on in life. Zero. So, well, I guess I shouldn't say that either because I've gotten plenty of jobs networking at the bar, like just putting out there, hey, anybody know anybody who needs any carpenters? And man, it seemed like I could get a job right away if I just went down to the bar and talked to a few people. So I guess it does help to put a little bit of investment into the bar for that kind of reason, for the networking, but the alcohol part of it was just useless. All right, Digital Cash Cow. Thank you very much for the $5. Not gonna lie, just bought 3 fish lures on credit. Texas to secede. Can private property be taken? Read David what is that? Ricardo Diaries. Are we done, son? Um, I don't know. Like private property is has always been kind of a questionable thing to me. If you have to pay taxes on it, and you don't pay if you don't pay the taxes, then you end up losing the property. So like you get the rights to rent it or something. I don't know. I don't know if you actually own your property. Like that's something that when I was studying into like the sovereign person, the whole idea of whether or not the people have the rights that they think they do, or if we're living under this, illusion of like being a sovereign citizen, that you're not really a sovereign. Um, with that also goes the idea of like true ownership of property. And it's kind of hard to discuss that one because really it's such a conspiracy type style of thinking that it's really difficult to break through to people to get them to understand that there is like there's the corporate identity. You have a corporate identity. It's just like you, right? It's your name spelled all in capital letters. And a lot of people like they roll their eyes when they hear this kind of thing, but it's true because I've seen evidence of it. I mean, I've I'm not going to get into the deepness of it, but I mean, I believe in that. I believe that it is a real thing. Now, I don't participate in the idea of like being the sovereign citizen and using my signature to pay for things like the accepted for value stuff. Only because I guess I'm scared of like losing everything I have worked for because I didn't understand exactly what it was that I was doing. But I've seen evidence of it there out there that it works, and I know people who do it. So yeah, that's the big conspiracy theory right there. Yeah. And with that also goes the ownership of property. Like, if you're not a true sovereign, then you will never truly own property either. All right, Creature from Jekyll Island, great book. Look into Fake from Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah. Does living in Astoria make you a Goonie fan? Well, yeah, everybody in Astoria loves the Goonies. Like, we all have seen the movie, we all love it, but like, it has been so overdone. Like, nobody really cares about the Goonies. Like, when they do like this Goonie festival or event or something, like I think they had a 25th anniversary or something like that going on, like the locals didn't care. Like they didn't. They're like, "What's going on? Oh, damn, another Goonie thing? Jeez, like that's the kind of attitude that we have because we're all so used to the Goonies. But we love the Goonies. Like we love the movie. In fact, they had it at the Columbia Theater last week, and that's like the really old theater that we have here in Astoria. We have like the Liberty Theater, which is like a really nice theater where they put on concerts and stuff. Then they have like the Columbia Theater, which is like a really old, like just movie, there's like a picture film kind of old school movie theater, and it has like these really old seats, and they're all sticky, and it stinks, and it's awesome, right? And it's cheap movies, and they like serve beer in there if you drink beer, so it's really cool. So anyway, I took the kids to go watch the Goonies at that, so we got to go see the Goonies on the big screen. It was way cool. The lights. what was that? The lights in my ceiling are round, but my floor is flat. One does not define the other, but even so, you don't understand. Okay, hold on, guys. Let me read that one again. Okay, the lights in my ceiling are round, but the floor is flat. One does not define the other, but even so, you don't understand. You're right. I don't. Sorry, you're right. Not a loser, bro. I'm 33. What were we talking about? You go, you go, bro. I am the dumb science teacher, so you're right. What are you guys talking about? I'm gonna move on here. Astoria always looked like a great place to live. No, Astoria is a great place to live, except over the last few years, it's just gotten so dang expensive that you can't afford to live there anymore. And everybody who lives there now is like a bunch of rich yuppies who moved in from like California and Seattle and Portland and stuff. So it's like the place isn't the same anymore. It used to be like a working or like a working man's town. Like that's what it was. It was full of loggers and fishermen, and like tourist attractions weren't really that big of a deal. But then over the last 20 years, tourists like trying to bring in more tourist type revenue, I guess, into the area and cleaning the place up. Well, now we have like this influx of people who are coming from like the Seattle, Portland, California area, and they're finding these really nice homes here in Astoria for like half the price that they sold their expensive one for, and it drove the prices of homes here just through the roof. And like all the working, like the working town type thing, it's now full of like, fancy luxury stuff, fancy coffee shops and trendy restaurants and stuff that's like wasn't typical of Astoria 20, 25 years ago. So it's still a beautiful place. I mean, don't get me wrong. And the people are really nice in Astoria. I mean, like friendly, like people are like, they treat you like they know you. Of course, they recognize me because, I got all this going on, but it's true. Like it's a nice place to be. It's low crime. It's clean. It's people are nice. Anyway. So yeah, Astoria's cool. Let's see here. The dive down 30 is amazing. Oh, the drive. God, see, my eyes are so bad. You're right. Highway 30 is a wonderful drive, especially like if the traffic isn't too bad and it's a nice sunny day. And that Highway 30 drive is from like Astoria to Tillamook. It's just amazing. It's just such a great, great, great little trip. And even farther down, like Tillamook is usually about as far south as I go. And yeah, like the cliffs, the ocean stops, everything along it is just really good. Will you be doing any meetups while you are here in Miami? Unfortunately, I'm not going to have a whole lot of time to do any meetups. I'm hanging out for the Rebel Capitalist event. Um, I may be able to get out and about tomorrow, and maybe a little bit on Sunday, but I take off Sunday morning, so or not Sunday morning, Monday morning. So I won't really have a whole lot of time to hang out. I was hoping to hang out today because I was supposed to have arrived last night, but instead I got in first thing this morning. So anyway, I didn't get in first thing this morning. I got in 3 o'clock or something like that. It was late this afternoon, later this afternoon. Okay, commercial real estate is going to be hit hard. I think it's already starting to get hit. Um, Especially if the retailers start really hurting and those stores start shutting down, you're going to start seeing like a wave of like, issues with malls and stuff like getting way worse than they are. Any lumber updates? As far as like the lumber updates go, not a whole lot has changed since, over the last week. It's pretty much still the same situation that we were in where the trying to get that lumber away from the mill was the difficult issue going up from, well, it was the last couple of months at least. And that put a lot of curtailments into the mill. Like the mills just simply didn't have a place to put this lumber. So they started shutting production down just because they just couldn't find any place to go with it. Well, now we have a slowdown in like building. So how long is it going to take for that like lumber to kind of get itself into the supply chain in order for these mills to fire back up again? And then again, when you have like 500 per thousand, the mills would much rather be pumping out lumber at say 800 to 1,000 per thousand than at 500 per thousand. Excuse me, than at 500 per thousand. So that's kind of like the weird like inventory situation we're in right now. Mills are stacked but curtailing development, and the demand at the retail side is a little bit, no, it's not as, I shouldn't say low, it's really low. Like it is not happening like it was last year or the year before. So yeah, lumber sales are going to be really, it's going to be a very interesting summer. I'd imagine that by the end of summer, you're going to start seeing prices running back up. Because what I'm envisioning is that these lumber mills with this like curtailing of development right now is going to leave a gap in production. So all the lumber that has been produced by the mills sitting there, trying to get it away from the mill, lack of trucking issues or whatever is causing that bottleneck, at some point that lumber is going to find its way in, right? It's going to get away from the mill and it's going to find its way into the distribution network. At that point, the mill is going to have this gap in production happening right there. So what's going to happen, right? Prices are down due to the fact that we have a high inventory. But then all that inventory disappears and there's a gap in production, right? Prices go back up. When will that little spot actually make it to the point where the prices go back up? And I'm guessing probably at the end of summer, like after all the building and everything is done and all this lumber that finally was stacked up at the mill makes it into the distribution network, then we're going to start seeing shortages taking place. Prices go up and the mills will fire back up again. I mean, it's the same thing that just keeps happening over and over again, and it's going to continue to happen until we find equilibrium. I mean, it's going to be oversupply, undersupply, oversupply, undersupply, and I've said it many times. So right now, it's in oversupply, but the mills have already curtailed development. So once that oversupply makes its way into the distribution network, that's when the issues will start switching around and you're going to start seeing the prices go back up. So I don't know if that's much of a lumber update, but that's what I'm going to tell Ken McElroy tomorrow when he asks me to. So because I think that's the discussion for tomorrow is that that's what they want to hear, so, or at least that's what I'm going to tell them. I don't know if that's what they want to hear. All right, remote workers don't want to come back to the city with this inflation as well. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like so many people, everybody wants to know where did all the employees go? Like where did all the workers go? And I don't think people quite take into consideration how easy it is to make money nowadays. Like, it is super easy. Like, there is all kinds of ways to make money that you don't have to show up to a 9 to 5 job for. And so here you are during the pandemic and you got a bunch of stimulus money and now you're sitting at home and you're trying to figure out what it is you can do. Well, lots of people might have figured out how it is that they can make some money on the side doing side gigs or, you know, who knows? I mean, just firing up YouTube channels or creating blogs or TikTok videos or selling stuff on Amazon. I mean, there is a lot of different ways to make money off the internet. And I don't think like a lot of people have taken that into consideration. It was just like, even if you, like, say you had a really good paying job, but then you found like a side gig that covers maybe like 2/3 of what you used to make. Well, then you can go out and get like a regular job and make even more money than you ever had before, or just try and find another little side hustle. And that's really where I feel like a lot of people don't quite grasp that, like how easy it is to make money in this day and age. It's just like it's everywhere, and I don't know. I'm not surprised that the jobs aren't getting filled. I mean, if I had, side gigs or a bunch of them, I wouldn't want to go to work at a 9 to 5 either. What would you hold that 50K for? I would, well, I would hold it in hopes that I would be able to pick up a very depreciated asset, right? So you look for unloved, unwanted, desired stuff. And like silver fits the bill. The only problem that I have with silver is that it's so manipulated. It is such a push down market that the day that it ever was released, like if they were not to manipulate it anymore, it would fly through the charts. Okay, so are you going to, like, my idea is like, are you buying all the silver in hopes of that moment, like a possibility that it'll happen in the future? I don't see that. Like, I don't want to, like, buy it all and then, like, okay, happen now. Like, I'm not gonna do that. So $50,000 to me would be better held on to right now in hopes that there would be a stock market crash. Not hopes, like, I don't want to hope for that, but hope that I could put it in, it be timed, be in the right timing to take place for me to put my money towards something like that. Like, I don't want to see the stock market crash. That's not like something I want to see. But if it did, it would be nice to have 50 grand that I could dump into it. Or if there was a housing market crash, it would be nice to have 50 grand to go out and buy some rental properties or something like that with it. Right now, all I see is that everything around me doesn't really want to go up. It all seems to want to go down. The only thing that really wants to go up, at least in my mind, is the dollar itself, and that's probably more towards the demand coming outside of this country than within it. So that's why I'd probably hold on to 50K. But I mean, to invest in something, then yeah, I would say like real estate would be like a really good place if you had a housing market crash, or the stock market, dividend paying stocks, stuff like that. That would be like the place to go. But like I said, if I was to do it right now, it'd probably be thirds, like a third metal, third cash, and third into the stock market. But not, I just wouldn't do it right now. I just wouldn't do it. And thank you very much, Jaws. I really appreciate the $1.99. All right, man. So many of you hanging out. All right. Oops. I agree. It's better just sit and wait. You'll know the opportunity when you see it, just like commodities 18 months ago. Yeah, and that's really where it is. I mean, like, I don't, like, I used to take chances. It'd be like, ooh, I'm gonna take my chance on that. No, I don't want to take chances anymore. I want to know, like, this is the for sure thing. This is really what I want to get into. It's because it's the right thing to do, and I feel that. Like, I don't want to be like, ooh, I hope. Like, I don't want to be like that. What is your take on crypto privacy coins like Monero? I like cryptocurrencies. I mean, I've always been a fan of cryptocurrencies, and I think the privacy coins are a brilliant idea. Like, to be able to do those transactions without anybody being able to tell whose wallet went to where or whatever, or who has what and who spent money with what. That to me is like what cryptocurrencies should have been about to begin with. Now, Bitcoin doesn't do that. Like, Bitcoin, every single Bitcoin transaction is recorded. So if you can figure out whose wallet is who, you can see every transaction they've ever done, participated with, and every transaction those people have participated with. And so it's just like this big open source of, like, records that you can go and just look at. That doesn't make it very comfortable when you want to do private sales. Like, you don't want anybody to know about this transaction, and whether it's illegal or not, you just, it's not for them to know about. It's my private business. And if you do it on the Bitcoin protocol or the Bitcoin blockchain, then it's going to be recorded. You do it on Monero and nobody gets to know about it. It's just you. So I like Monero. I mean, it's not something that I would invest heavily into, though, because I just don't see Monero being like the cryptocurrency of choice. Um, but that's just me. I mean, I don't know. All right, Dominic Flat, 10 or 9.99. Thank you very much. Congrats. Oops. Congrats on the 100,000 coming up. Been here since like 10. Keep it up. Special 100K video planned. Yeah, I'm gonna do a great big thank you for everybody. I'm not sure exactly, what the 100K video is gonna look like, but it has been a long time getting to this, and we're almost there. I mean, we're less than 700 subscribers away from hitting that 100,000 mark. So it's gonna happen here real soon. And man, after you hit 100,000, that's like you really made it, right? I mean, you're like a true legitimate YouTuber at that point. I mean, even YouTube recognizes you, and it's gonna be cool. I mean, I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. Okay, moving on. I'm getting tired, guys. I should probably go to bed. I get up early and go down to the Rebel Capitalist event there. All right, the elimination of Roe versus Wade is a great. I don't want to talk about that political stuff. I mean, it's up to you to occupy your mind with that one. I was here when you had like 7,000 during COVID. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing on how quickly this channel like just shot up. I mean, over the course of the last 2 years, it's been like 90,000 subscribers. It's just incredible. Do you trust the Fed? Um, in what way? Like, do I trust them to make like appropriate decisions for my life, or do I trust like they're gonna do what they say they're gonna do as a banking? Like I've been able to predict what the Fed does because they tell you what they're gonna do in their speeches. I mean, it's just like they don't try and hide anything. So you can go and read it yourself and know exactly what it is that they plan on doing and what they are doing. So they're not hiding anything. You don't have to trust them. They're just like you just go and read their stuff. Um, I don't trust them to necessarily like make the decisions like make a decision that's going to benefit my life. Like I don't like it would be like, oh man, I'm so glad the Fed made that decision. Woo, man, we're doing so much better now. Like I would never say something like that. But I look at the Federal Reserve, I look at their actions, I look what they're doing, and then I try and conduct my life appropriately to what I feel is going to be the right decisions for myself based on what it is I think that they are doing. And I don't necessarily listen to what they say on the news. I kind of make fun of that stuff. What I do listen to is their speeches and their comments, within that kind of information, within that scope. Like the stuff they put out on the news, that's jawboning. That's like the forward guidance. Like that's the credible threats that they're putting out there. The reality of what they're going to do is stated in those speeches. So if you really want to know what the Fed is up to, read their speeches. It's all the information's right there. I mean, that's how I was able to like. It's how I like. It started with that John Williams speech. Like John Williams in that um, monetary policy for a low neutral rate world. That speech was incredible. Like that one really kind of said something to me. It was just like they are really planning something big coming into the future. I didn't know what. I didn't know what it was because they didn't state that there are going to be a pandemic and they're going to set up special purpose vehicles and do all this quantitative easing and all this other stuff. They didn't say that in the speech. What they said was is that they were going to let inflation run extra hot, extra long for an extended period of time. And I was like, how are you going to do that, John, Mr. Williams? How you plan on getting inflation to run extra hot, extra long for an extended period of time, considering the last 10 years, you haven't been able to get it up to 2%. And I said that over and over again. How do you plan on doing that? How are you going to do that? And then a year later, pandemic. And I'm like, got it. All right. I won't ask you anymore how you plan on doing it. All right. Still 477 of you guys. This is so awesome. All right. Wish you were my neighbor. Would be fun. Yeah. Yeah. It would be fun to have some cool. I have a cool neighbor. I mean, my buddy Ernie who lives next to me. He has a flower farm behind the house. Well, behind my house, he has a field, and out in that field, he grows flowers. So, out my kitchen window or out my patio door, I get to see like dahlias and daffodils and all kinds of stuff that he grows out there. It's pretty cool. Do an all-nighter. Yeah, well, yeah, but I want to be awake for the rebel capitalists in the morning. I don't want to be all like sitting in my chair like, oh God, I'm so tired. You chill. We need people to tell people not to say stuff. You chill. What was that about? Imagine needing mods. I don't know. What are you, 12? Sometimes I feel like I'm 12. Like I do. Like I'm almost 46. I'm gonna be 46 next month. But I really like. There's times when I feel like I'm 12. You know, or maybe I just wish I was 12. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. The live chat is missing All Nighter. Yeah, I haven't seen All Nighter Hider in a long time, man. I mean, it's been. Oh, maybe he's out fishing. That might be it. He might be out. He might be out on a boat. Do you think Sri Lanka debt crisis will be contagious? Not alone. I mean, it's going to be, that's one in addition to many others that's going to happen. I mean, Sri Lanka itself isn't going to drag the world down. I mean, you know, because I brought that up, like the contagion that comes from it, right? But I said it then, like if you have these nations start to fall, like you have to have more than just one. But it could be the start of a contagion effect. Like you get Sri Lanka to go, you get Russia to go, you start all of a sudden, like you got all these corporations starting to fail. European, like look at the article. European corporate debt is like, selling off like crazy. That could go into default. You start having a bunch of corporations in Europe, in Europe start to default and maybe start dragging down some of the Euro nations or something like that. I mean, these things could happen. Just because Sri Lanka goes by itself doesn't mean that it's going to take off, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on. And I wouldn't take it lightly, saying like, oh, it's no big deal. I mean, it's definitely a big deal. All right. Good. What is that? G9, everyone? Are you bailing out? Like, good night? I totally meant people needing moderators. What are they, 12? Oh, I get it. I see what you're saying, bro. I thought you were talking about me. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, some people, like, they get to trolling on the comments, but whatever. I mean, sometimes it gets to me, but I try not to. All right. Congrats for becoming almost 100,000 subs. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. All right. Imagine needing deaf where I live. Everyone has that garbage deleted. What a joke. He answered that like a champ. The what are you, 12 question. Oh, yeah, but he wasn't talking about me. He was talking about the commenters. So. All right. Yeah, everyone, congrats to UE, honestly. Yeah. Thank you, man. Are we not in a recession now? Well, okay. Yes, no, all right. A recession is defined by 2 quarters of negative growth. So we've had 1 quarter, we're about ready to have another. So by the time they get to say yes, we are in a recession, it started 6 months ago, right? That's how it works. So you have to have two. So if you have like a negative one quarter of negative growth, followed by 1 quarter that doesn't have negative growth, and then you have another quarter followed by negative growth, that's still not technically a recession. You have to have two in a row, right? I mean, that's the way they define it. It doesn't mean that it's not a slowdown or that we're not leading into recession or that really the recession started 6 months ago. That's very well what it could mean, but you can't call it a recession until you have that, or at least they don't call it a recession until they have that happen, right? 2 quarters of negative growth. So the day they say, hey, we're in a recession, and by the way, it started 6 months ago because we have 2 quarters of negative growth. So yeah, we're technically in one, but you can't call it that, right? It's kind of like when you go into a foreign country and you do a policing action, it's not a war, right? Same thing. It doesn't matter. It's like, it doesn't matter what it is, so long as you don't call it what it is, you can do whatever you want, just don't call it what it is, and then you can call it a police action, and people are like, oh, they're policing and not fighting and killing people. All right, you rock, bro. Kill it tomorrow. Yeah, I hope so. I'm looking forward to having that discussion with Ken McElroy and Jason Hartman and George Gammon. That's gonna be it's like a half an hour, like just a little discussion circle, and it's gonna be cool. There's gonna be, I don't know, probably, I was looking at the chairs. There could be up to 1,000 people who can attend this thing. So I don't know if that's how many people are gonna be there, but. Okay, do you think buying and selling used tractors will be a good hustle? Do you think the US farmland being paid to not grow? I think they will stop just time survive, just in time to survive. Um, so very much like the oversupply, undersupply, the bullwhip effect. During the pandemic, farmers got hammered hard. Remember all the milk that they were dumping out in the fields? Remember the potatoes getting buried? Remember the pigs that were like being culled off, like just killed off the livestock because they couldn't send them off to the slaughterhouses? That was very damaging for farmers. So this is where I really think the food shortages are going to come from, is because farmers are going to be less likely to invest that much into the next year, considering how heavy or how hard they got hit from not being able to sell their produce and their livestock previously, right? So here you had this investment, your product just basically got destroyed. You didn't get to take that to market. You dumped all your milk out in the field or whatever. So now you're supposed to invest into your farm and equipment and cultivating and effort and labor and all the other stuff that goes into fertilizers to try and grow food again that you just got hammered on, right? But then there's a food shortage and the price of food skyrockets. And all of a sudden, farmers are looking at it going, holy moly, I want to take advantage of this high price in food. And they start investing into the farmland again. So, do I think that selling used tractors will be a good hustle? Yeah, at some point, I think it will. Especially when food prices hit their all time high and start peaking out. There's going to be a lot of farmers looking to invest and they're going to be buying equipment. And used tractors might be one of those things. So, yeah, I think that would probably be a good idea. Based on that stuff. So I could be wrong, but it's possible. Peter Schiff might convince you to move to Puerto Rico. Well, I tell you, I was talking with Brent Johnson earlier today, and he's kind of convinced me to move to Puerto Rico. So I was very curious about it. I talked to him for a little bit about it, and he said that it was a little bit of concerning going there, but he's actually happy he did. He says he really likes it there. So yeah, I don't know, maybe. I saw a video, tons of potatoes thrown out. Yeah, right. I mean, I remember like even here in my local area, a farmer who grew potatoes. I mean, this is I don't know what it is, potatoes, but he had like a trailer, like a big trailer full of potatoes, and he had parked it on the side of the road with a sign that said "Free potatoes, come take them away." And people did. I mean, they went down there and like with 5-gallon buckets hauling off like tons and tons of potatoes. All right, it's $8 for 1 gallon of organic Horizon milk. My gosh, that seems very expensive. How are the, oops, how are the, oh, are you talking boards or broads? All right, when's your birthday? July 27th. My question is, how the hell do you preserve potatoes? They always grow stems. Well, okay, so there are ways to preserve potatoes. And I mean, I'm not, I mean, I personally don't know all the canning aspects of how to preserve food, but I'll get my wife to tell us, right? And I'll come back and I'll give you all the ways that you can preserve potatoes. And I imagine that there's probably going to be a bunch of people in the comments section who will give you ideas on how you can preserve potatoes too. So you can or freeze them, genuine question. Yeah, it is. I mean, no, that's a legitimate question. I mean, because the problem with potatoes is that they fall apart, right? They're going to turn to mush, so you have to do it right and you have to know how to do it. So I've heard of people canning potatoes before. It's not the first time, so it's possible to can them and preserve them for years that way. I was just thinking there's got to be other ways as well. So the system wants Putin in America, but it needs middle Americans. It needs middle Americans to want it and see it as the only hope. And everything you see happening is all for that goal. The system wants Putin in America or Putin in America. I don't know, I'm moving on. Anyway, I'm getting tired here, guys. I think I'm going to have to crash out. All right, any words about Canadian real estate? I am not terribly familiar with the Canadian real estate. The only thing that I really know about the Canadian real estate is that the average house price up there is just insanely high. And I cannot imagine that being sustainable, especially when you start having a downturn in the markets, you start having a downturn in like when you start seeing the slowdown in the economy and jobs and all that starts to slow down, then making your payments on expensive homes is going to be hard. So here in the United States, I see it not as bad, but in Canada, it's like ungodly bad. Like, the average house price is just stupid high. And so I could see that really having like a major downturn to it. That and in like places like New Zealand, they're in the kind of the same boat. So I wish I had a better insight. Like I just don't follow the Canadian market nearly as closely as I follow like the new construction market here in the United States. All right, I'm gonna answer one more question. I'm gonna go to bed. All right. So okay, here we go. The only raised my rent $75 from 750 to 825. Thank God. Just got the letter today. Yeah, that's not too bad. $75 isn't bad. I mean, that's like a 10% increase. I hear like I forget what it is in Oregon. You have a limit on how much you can actually move it up, um, but that's not bad. I mean, I've heard of people who are like, a couple $100 or even more difference. All right. Good night. You're going to do great tomorrow. Well, thank you very much, MK Bot. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody who has come into the chat. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. I just saw a couple of more people hit the thumbs up, so I appreciate that as well. Thank you, everybody, for the super chats. You guys are so generous, always so generous with the super chats, and I can never thank you enough for that. Very supportive of the channel and me and everything I do. So thank you guys for that. I'll try and do another live stream, maybe from the Rebel Capitalist if George is cool with it. I'll ask George if he'll let me do that, maybe for just a little bit. And if he's cool with it, then maybe I'll do a live stream from the Rebel Capitalist tomorrow. All right. Good night, everybody. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.